We'll stop sharing and then I will let you become the presenter.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's great to be talking to people in Europe again. My name is Armando Lacerda. I am a Microsoft MVP. Let me get my screen up here. Before I do the introductions, let me see. PowerPoint is here. And I should be able, let me see. If I do this, I don't have an option to pin. Can you pin my camera for everybody, please?
Yes, I think I made you spotlight now.
Okay, I'm a spotlight, right? Yeah, because
Yes.
I need the spotlight because if this use works as usual, I will not be sharing the screen. It will be everything blended in a camera feed. Let's see
Perfect.
if it goes. All right, so let's do this and let's do this. How does it work?
Looks
How does it look?
fantastic.
Good. All right.
Yes.
Okay. So again, thank you so much for having me. My name is Armando Lacerda. Is down there, right on the monitor there. I'm an Azure Microsoft MVP on data platform. I've been a data platform for MVP in data platform for 5 years. I've been working with Microsoft technology for over 30 years. I've been working specifically on the data side with SQL and everything that came after SQL for about that time too, about 26 years. And I've been working with Azure since 2010, so it was about 14 years. And of course, in the beginning, it was just a few projects here and there. But in my experience in my career, I've been working mostly on cloud projects since 2016. And I actually don't remember the last time I have done anything on premise, to develop anything on premise. And in particular, I mean, when it comes to Power BI, I worked with Power BI since inception. And actually, before inception, when the core of Power BI was still in Excel and is still there. And I got invited by Microsoft when they were because the MVPs, when you become an MVP, if you got awarded as an MVP, you get invited to work with them in some projects before they to evaluate products before they release. And I've been working with Fabric for over a year actually. I've been working with Fabric for over a year before it was a public product. And it's a great tool. I'm so excited. I have few projects already going on Fabric, and this particular session is one we put together. I first presented it in Portuguese, in Brazilian Portuguese. I'm from Brazil originally. I live in California, but this weekend I'm at my friend's place here in Atlanta. I came Atlanta, Georgia, in the U.S. And I came here for a SQL Saturday event that happened yesterday. It was super cool. We had a lot of fun there. We have over 300 people there. And this particular session here, I presented in Portuguese with a friend uh, from Brazil too, but lives in Portugal, and we presented it online in Portuguese. And now I have it here for you in English. And the thing about Fabric is there are so many options inside Fabric. There are so many things you can do inside Fabric that sometimes people get taunted and say, "Oh my God, where do I go about? How do I do this?" And when it comes to data engineering and machine learning, Spark is the thing, right? We do Spark for these things, and Microsoft has a product called Azure Synapse that does have Spark, but also has another product there called the Azure SQL Data Warehouse inside Synapse, the data warehouse inside Synapse, and there are options, to do what we're doing here in Synapse. But in Fabric, Microsoft decided to go straight into Spark. And actually, I misspelled Spark. That should be a uppercase S. I'll fix it. And when I go and start working with people and show them what Fabric can do, and we start getting projects migrating into Fabric, people get a little confused, like, well, now how do I work with Spark? I'm not used to this thing. I used to do Azure SQL Data Warehouse or serverless SQL Pool. That actually in Synapse it's called dedicated SQL Pool. The Azure SQL Data Warehouse was before Synapse. I apologize. But in Azure Synapse dedicated SQL Pool, I used to do things in the dedicated SQL Pool or in the serverless SQL Pool. I know there was a Spark in there, but I'm not used to Spark. And sometimes I get people who comes from Databricks projects, which is also a Spark engine there, and they're like, we have this, we do these things in Databricks. How does that work inside Fabric? I heard Fabric has some Spark thing going on in there. So how does that work with Fabric? So we put this together, myself and Tiago Balabucci, down there in Portugal, and we present this, and it was a series of Fabric sessions in Portuguese. But I have this one in particular that focus on the Spark technology. So let's jump into it. Let's see what is Spark, where it comes from. Let me just go here into my slide deck and fix that essay. Oops, that essay there. Where are you here? Oh my God, it doesn't want to work. Supposed to be this, yes. Yeah, it really just doesn't want to. So let's do this. There we go. Now I got a Spark right. Okay, let's move on. So this is our agenda, right? What is Spark and how it fits inside Microsoft Fabric. So we're going to see how that goes. And then we're going to see, and all with demos, right? I'm not going to stick with the slides. I have like 10 slides here only. How we're going to see notebooks working with Spark and within the Fabric ecosystem. And of course, demos all along. So 2 topics, pretty simple, but a lot of demos to show how these things work. So this first slide here is about showing what is Fabric is all about, right? This is Fabric. When we say Fabric, Microsoft Fabric, one of the things we need to keep in mind is Fabric is not one product, right? You sign up for Fabric, looks like one product. And in a way it is, but you sign up for Fabric, but Fabric in terms of system design, in terms of data engineering, data science, it's an umbrella of multiple features inside. We're all having kind of a trouble to how we name these things. Like I'm naming it features here. When you go to the documentation, sometimes you see engines, sometimes you see services. But Fabric, in terms of Microsoft documentation, is the service, right? Microsoft Fabric is the software as a service. I hear some audio. Is that a question coming up? You're welcome to ask questions if you like, right? And I'm gonna ask, yeah, if you have any questions, raise your hand. I'll try to keep my teams here up. And if I see a hands up, I'll handle you the microphone. All right, no hands up, okay. So Fabric is that umbrella, right? And it's software as a service in comparison with platform as a service. The service that came before Fabric was Microsoft Synapse. I already mentioned it. And Synapse is platform as a service. Now, the big deal here for you to start grasping these things is the idea in a very high level definition is the idea is platform as a service has way more elements or settings for you to set it up, right? To turn it up. So it has way more knobs for you to go and adjust things. What Microsoft has done is they have learned a lot from platform as a service. They got those services in Synapse and some other services in there, and they bundled those services together under Fabric. And most of the elements, most of the tuning elements, the tuning knobs that we used to have, and they're still there in Synapse. Synapse is not going away; it's staying there as a product offering in Microsoft Azure. But most of those tuning knobs, they disappeared. They are not there anymore. And Microsoft Fabric is offered as a software as a service, which means it's more integrated and simpler to manage and to tune up. And in this session, I will show you those elements specifically for in specific for Fabric. But you see, in specific for the Spark engine. But as you can see here on this slide, we have data warehousing, we have data activator, we have real-time analytics, we have all of these other faces, features, whatever we want to call it, inside Fabric that other people doing other activities in the data processing of your company would go and use it. Like we are here using Spark, and usually Spark falls into data engineering. And you may see some data science people coming in, and they're going to do their data science and data crunching there, training machine learning models and these things. And they will also leverage Spark engine more likely, but there will be a different approach to it. So you see these elements, and inside Fabric, when we jump into the demonstration, you also see Fabric showing the interface from different angles. It's the same service, but from different angles depending of your role or which hat you are wearing that day, which task you are trying to accomplish. Now, one thing that all of these services have in common is this. In Azure, each one of these services was a particular service. So you have Data Factory, you have Synapse, you have storage accounts to create data lakes. You have all of these services, and they all have their own way, their own interface design. Sometimes they resemble each other, sometimes they're very different from each other. But in terms of user interface, when it comes to Fabric, Microsoft looked around and they realized that Power BI is one of the most successful products they have had in terms of user adoption and end user adoption, and the way they play with Power BI. And Microsoft decided to use the Power BI interface concept into Fabric. So if you have a Power BI background, you will be very at home when you start browsing Fabric. If you don't have a Power BI background, you're gonna learn the interface. The interface is not that hard, but a lot of concepts, if you have a Power BI guy by you or gal by you, say, oh yeah, that works like that way in Power BI, because and it will make sense in Fabric because the interface and the concepts that were brought into from Power BI to encapsulate Fabric. And we're gonna see that in a little bit. Like I said, we're gonna be focusing on data engineering this one here. The series I did with Thiago, we did all the services there. It was an 8-week series. So someday I'm gonna publish this thing in English too. So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going, please do so. Just go to LinkedIn and search for my name there, Armando Lacerda. I think there are like 2 or 3 of them, but my picture is there. You're gonna be you'll be able to spot me pretty easy. All right, so before I get here into the data pipelines and movement, let me jump into the first demo and show you some stuff there inside Fabric. This one. So here's Fabric, and this is when you browse to Fabric, like when you go fabric.microsoft.com, that's where you land. And here, of course, on purpose, they have kind of the same icons I showed you there on the slide. The one is icon that's not here is the one lake, and we're gonna explain why. But there we are, right? This is Microsoft Fabric. So how do you get Fabric? We are gonna focus on the Spark, but first, how do you get Fabric? And here's a big thing. If this was platform as a service, you will go into Azure and create a lake that would be your service, and then create everything else around the lake, service by service. But this is platform as a service. This is not platform as a service. This is software as a service. And from Microsoft perspective on their implementation of the cloud, software as a service is very connected to Microsoft 365. And when a company signs up for Microsoft 365, they get all the components of 365, like Enter ID and the Office applications and whatever else they sign up for. And if you want to have Fabric, you need to have Microsoft 365, because when you get Microsoft 365, you get this element called the tenant. And I don't want to, diverge much out of Fabric and out of Spark that we're focusing on, but these are prerequisites. You cannot do Fabric like I just got into here. You cannot do Fabric without having a Microsoft 365 tenant. I got my own one. If you look at here, where's my mouse? Here's my mouse. If you look into here, you see I'm connected with my on email address, and you can email me if you like. But who uses email nowadays, right? Social media, social network is way better. My preferred channel is LinkedIn. You email me, I may not see your email for days. but the point here is I have my tenants. You cannot have Fabric if you have like a Hotmail, Outlook account. You need to have a Microsoft tenant. And when you get a Microsoft tenant, you need to sign up for Fabric. So if you want to try out Fabric, if your company would allow you to do it, great. But more likely, you want to have a separate tenant, a development tenant, where you can mess up stuff without disturbing production, especially because this thing requires Enter ID, the tenant, it requires Enter ID. So keep that in mind. And there are multiple links there. I'm preparing a video also on how to get one development environment up and running with no cost. There are multiple links there on Microsoft on how to do that. Is a question people keep asking me. So I will be recording this when I get back home. Was that a question? Nope. All right. Okay. So good. I have Microsoft 365 up and running, and I have a tenant. In my tenant, like we sign up for Power BI, you can also sign up for Fabric. And I have already signed up for Fabric. And at the moment I sign up for Fabric, I get a storage place called the One Lake. Let me get this slide back here just quick, just for you to see that. 1, 2, this guy here, right? I get One Lake. So when you get your tenant, you get one storage place to store all your data. We'll be doing Spark over here, but Spark is a compute engine that needs data to work with. So where is my data? My data will be stored, it's not there yet, but will be stored on this element called the One Lake. And the One Lake doesn't show in here because if you have Fabric, One Lake is there. And you're going to bring data in the way you decide to bring data in. Any way you want to bring the data, it's fine. You're going to bring the data. There are multiple ways of bringing data. You can even drag and drop from your workstation. I'm going to show you, get data into One Lake. So whatever you do, if it's Spark, if it's data science, if it is real-time analytics, whatever you do, your data always lands into One Lake. There is one particular service in Fabric that has a separate storage because it's the way it works, which is the real-time analytics that gets the data outside One Lake, but then dumps it into One Lake. It's just because of the performance thing that's required there. So for all purpose and service, data is in the One Lake. And when we work with any of these data processing elements you see on the screen right now, we point to the place where the data is in One Lake. And that's when Power BI will start being very noticeable in here. But before I get in there, let me get to the final point of this. So if I want to do data engineering, for instance, and by the way, this is the home page for Fabric. These options that are showing up here and the compute elements, they also show up here on the left. So if I click here on the left, I see these are my, these are what they call the roles, or the roles are the ways you want to see Fabric interface. Like if I'm going to do data engineering now, I'm going to click on that data engineer guy there, clicking here, and I see the most common options that data engineers are looking for when they come in Fabric. So if I'm a data engineer, more likely I'll be doing a notebook, or I will be creating a data flow. Should be here somewhere. I already mentioned earlier, if you see me doing this, it's because I misplaced my reading glasses. I don't know where they are. So sometimes this here are too small for me to read. So I apologize if I if I feel lost when browsing this thing on the screen. It's just because I can barely read. But there we go. You see the notebook in there. You see the Spark job in there. The pipeline that you can create. things that a data engineer would be doing, right? Now, if I'm here to work with data science, for instance, I see some other elements that are specific for data or more tailored for data science, right? If I want to do data warehouse, same thing. I see some elements that are specific for data warehouse. But the bottom line is everything that Fabric offers is always available for you, right? If you click here on Create, you see all the elements that Fabric has to offer to you, so you can create a way to process data. So Spark is about processing data, right? When we do data warehousing, it's about processing data. When we do data science, it's about processing data. So everything here is about processing data, including Spark. And when it comes to process data, there is one element you need to understand that's very, very important and will affect how Spark works, which is the Fabric capacity. So it's kind of it's not really novel. It's just a different way of showing how things work in the cloud. So I need to make sure that you grasp that idea super clear. Let me go back to data engineering here. Let's go back to data engineer. And let's say I want to create a notebook. And if I'm going to create a notebook, what's going on? Let me go here. Let's go to this workspace in here. Let's try that again. Create a notebook. Right there. I'll create a new workspace for us for these demos in a bit. But here I have a new notebook. So if I get this, if I'm start going to create some Python code here or SQL code here to deal with my data that is in one lake, I will of course need a running environment, a Spark environment to run my code. And I got one here. I can start work from this one here. But this is the thing, please. When I get in here on this Spark environment, there will be an amount of cores that there and the ratio for CPU for memory according to the cores or vCPUs they're associated to it, and also the libraries and everything else we'll be investigating. But the
Armando,
yes,
we are getting a few comments in the meeting chat that the screen is slightly blurry. Is there something you could do to increase the fonts or zoom in that might help? Some
sure.
are also suggesting maybe having focus on the content.
All right, let's stop this. Let me see here. There is. And let me change.
I think that might be good. Yeah, it definitely improved on my side.
Okay. Let me get this and change to this.
People are very happy. That was perfect. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Teams used to do this better, but they changed something in Teams that's not doing as well as it was. So let's keep it this way. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know that it was not showing well. So yeah, so when I come in here and I have here my Spark environment ready to run my code, whatever code I would have in here, that Spark environment is just a definition. It's not actually the compute power. It defines the compute power you would need to run this notebook, but it's not the real compute power. For the entire fabric, for everything that Fabric does, every time code needs to run, it runs on the Fabric capacity. And this is one of the first things you need to understand when you come into Fabric, because if you're zero in Spark, this is just what it is, right? Because you haven't seen Spark before, so this is it. So this is what it is. But if you come from Databricks or if you come from Azure Synapse Spark pools, when you create an environment like that, you are actually creating the running allocating the compute power behind those things. When you go in Databricks and you create a workspace and you go into compute, if you ask there like 12 vcores, it will create an environment of 12 vcores. If I come in here and I'm trying to create a Spark pool of 12 vcores, I may not be able to, because it depends on the capacity. Because this is software as a service, everything we do in Fabric in terms of compute is dependent and restricted to the Fabric to the capacity environment in Fabric that I have created for my Fabric environment. And for that, I will go back into Azure, because there are two ways you can do that. You can do it in Azure, or you can do on the administrative portal. I use in Fabric. I'm gonna show you both, but I really like to do this into Azure. So here we are. If I need a Spark pool that has like one driver and 10 working nodes, and they are, let's say, 4 CPUs, 4 vcores, each one of them, I need a Fabric capacity that would support that. So for that case, like the one that I have here right now, let me grab it here. The one that I have here right now is a you see over here, it's an F8, right? And what is an F8? What is in there? Well, this number 8 is the amount of vcores you have. So that's 8 vcore. That's all you have, right? 8 vcore on this one here. And I have this one that's super small. I mean, there is smaller options than that one here, but this one is just to keep the lights going, to do my demos. If I needed a Spark pool that would need more vcores than that, I would have to go back to the Fabric offering. Come on, yeah, here, and create a capacity that would support that. And here's the size. And here are my options. Really see the capacity units that are in there. 64. With this one here, we'll probably be able to do that. So this is the actual Fabric capacities that you can sign up for, and this is where money flows, right? You're charged in Fabric in two ways: by the capacities you get, and by the data you store and move out of Fabric, right? Move within Fabric, you don't pay money. There is no charge. But when you move out of Fabric or in between regions, then you pay for network traffic. So that's how you pay Fabric, right? You pay for the compute capacity and you pay for that one. And here's the thing about Spark. Let's say you have two departments, and one department has a small workload and another department has a very high demand workload. In order to support Spark and everything else that is in Fabric for these two departments, you have the option to create one capacity to support both, and that capacity would have enough compute power for both. Or you can create multiple capacities, in this case two, one for one department and the other one for the other department. And because you have two capacities, in your bill, you see how much each one of them consumed. So you can, like in terms of budgeting and the financial side of the company, they can work with the actual values for each one of the departments. So capacity is very, very important, because they define the limits of the Spark pools you can create for a particular environment inside Fabric. I hope that's clear. If you have questions, please let me know. Teams kind of got shy here, got here on the side. I don't see any hands up. And like I said, I don't have my read glasses, and the fonts there on the chat window is kind of small. If there are any questions there, please jump up and let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. All right, so that is it about the capacity. And when we get into once we get the capacity going, the next thing I'm gonna do in Spark, if I want to do a notebook, is to create my environment inside Fabric to work with the Spark and everything else. So let me go back here to my data engineering. Sorry, let me go back here to Workspaces. And this is when the Power BI taste start comes into place, because Fabric is there. I have access to everything that is in Fabric. But if I want to accomplish something, the very first thing I need to do is to create a workspace. In Fabric, a workspace is like a sandbox, is a place where people collaborate. It's just, that's exactly the definition that I give to people when I'm talking about Power BI, right? So you don't do anything in Fabric besides administering some global elements in Fabric. You don't do anything in Fabric outside the workspace. So if you're going to work with Fabric, you need a workspace, no matter what you do. So let's go ahead and create a workspace in here. I'm going to call this workspace here Demo Spark. And I would, add people here, or the groups that would be working with this. But what is really important for us here right now is down here, advanced. And because a workspace could be a workspace just for Power BI, it could be a workspace for, just for Power BI or for the entire Fabric. In this case here, if I was going to work with Power BI and I'm a report author, I would do Power BI Premium. But because I'm a data engineer and I actually want to work with Microsoft Fabric elements, not just Power BI, I want to go into Fabric. That's the one I want to do it. And when I go here into Fabric, it will give me the option to choose my, you know it, we just mentioned it, right? What is that? That is my, where is it? Go back, what? That is my, should show, here we go. That is my capacity, right? Fabric demos, that is a resource group. What is the name? The name is down here, I think. Fabric Lab, right here. That's my capacity, right? Fabric Lab, you see there? So this is where, this is where we have the connection between the workspace and the capacity. When I am creating a workspace, it will show me or give me the options of which workspaces have been given to me as options, right? Because there are security elements to this. In this case, I have only one, so I'm good. Now that I have a workspace associated, I have a capacity associated to this workspace, I will be able to do Spark. Because if this was trial or pro or premium per user, you would not be able to do any Fabric stuff, which includes Spark. The only thing you would be able to would be Power BI. Is that clear? Hope it's clear. So let's get into here. Yep, get the capacity in there. Bang. So now I'm starting becoming a hero, right, in Spark, because I understand that in order to run Spark, I need to have a workspace, and my workspace needs to be associated with a Fabric capacity. So that's to get started with Spark. Reload, whatever. I don't know what it is asking me that. So now I have a workspace. Here's my workspace here on the side. As you can see over here, my demo Spark workspace that I have just created. And my demo workspace is empty. There is nothing in there because I have just created it. But because this workspace is backed up by the Fabric, by the capacity in Fabric, I can start doing Spark.
And Armando, do you want to take questions during the session, or do you want to wait?
Sure. Yeah, bring them up.
So we have a question here from Rias, who says each capacity has its own one leg. Is that correct?
Each capacity, no, each tenant.
Thank you.
Who was the person who asked that?
Rias. You can see it in the chat later. Yeah.
Thank you, Emily. I'm so sorry. It's hard for me to read in the chat. That's why I'm not reading. So Vias, the one lake is, like the name implies, is one lake for the entire tenant, right? So as many workspaces you have, the data, and for as many capacities you have, it's one lake for the entire ecosystem, for everything that's in there. Is there a way to create more than one lake? Yeah, there are. Technically, there are, but that's not how it's designed to work, right? It's one lake for everything, right? It's one storage place for everything. Thanks, Emily. Are there other questions?
Not for now.
Not for now. All right. So yeah, let's get back in here. So now I have my workspace, and my workspace is backed by a capacity. So if I get here into my workspace on this gearbox in here, I will see here many options to manage my workspace. One of them here is to go to the tenant administration portal, right? That is where you go and do like either domain or global administration of the fabric at the tenant level. So that's one of the options in there. The other options we have for the workspace, they're more around how the workspace works. You see, there are some Power BI settings in here, connections when the workspace is bringing data from other places outside the One Lake, or even when if it's the One Lake, you know, which area of One Lake you are bringing data from. Yeah, there are a lot of options in here. Purview to set it up. There are a bunch of elements in there. Let me go here just quick. Done. Back here to this. And here's my demo workspace. Let me click on this guy here. Yeah. So here, when I'm, let me show you what I clicked again. Here in the workspaces, and I clicked in here in the demo workspace, which is the one we have. Sometimes these things don't show up, right? Like if you look at here right now, it's just the workspace. So you have to hover over, and then you see these three dots here that will give you more options. So when you click here and you ask to see more options in terms of the workspace settings, you will see here some options that don't show up there on that gear over there. I think there's a way to get in there, but I always get lost from that way. But over here, you have an option for data engineering, data science, and pipelines, these things. These are all backed up by the Spark environment that would have for the workspace. And I'm gonna pause in here. Look at me. I mean, I'm small on Teams right now, but look at me. The compute definitions for any processing element is tied up to the workspace. 80% of the settings that are important for Spark, they are tied up to the workspace. I made sure that I went to the Azure and show you the capacity, because the workspace is going to be limited. Your options for the workspace settings will be limited by the capacity definition that you associated the workspace with. So if you want to create a Spark pool with particular libraries brought in from, from your company that you have developed, or from the internet that you want to download, some extra libraries that are not there by default, you need to have that setting in the workspace for every workspace where that setting is needed, right? Because these are definitions that are siloed in the workspace, because the workspace, once again, is that sandbox, is that area. It defines a fence around it that works just both for security, which we will not be touching here today, both for security and for configurations, right? What you can see and what you can do. So this is per workspace. So if I get here into data science, look what I find in here. For now, the only thing I have there is Spark settings. And that's funny, right? No, give me a menu. I'll say menu of foods. All right, what's my option? Burger. That's the only option we have, right? Or mac and cheese. There's no more options. But there's only one option there, which means Microsoft may be thinking about more stuff to put in here later, but it's not here right now. So when I get in here, I see what are my Spark configurations and my Spark options. Let it load there for a while. There we go. Now that's what I have. And this is where the Spark heroes will really shine, because if you need to know how to get into this and what are your options in here. Now, if you go to Synapse, and I'm going there, right, just making a bridge for anyone in attendance or that's watching this video later in the recording, If you go into Synapse or if you go into Databricks, there is a ton of options in there, right? In terms of which Spark pool configuration you want to create for your notebook to run on. Databricks has like a couple of dozens of options in there. If you go into Spark in Azure Synapse, there are fewer options in there, like three, I think, 3 or 4 they have in there right now. But here in Fabric, our Spark pool, it's even simpler because they are like, there are older versions of the Spark engine and they have their trouble. And because this product is a brand new product, we want to support what is from the time it was released above, right? And what comes next. There is no much backward compatibility in terms of runtime settings. So if I go here and create a new pool, so see, got a pool in here. I got a starter pool right there that was already created for me, and I can go ahead and create a new pool, and I can define it, and I can define the settings for the new pool, the name for the new pool. So my Spark pool, and there is only one type of node, which also shows you, right? Once again, second time you get a menu, but only one option, a menu. It sounds like, when Henry Ford was giving that that famous line from Henry Ford back in the previous century, like, you can buy any kind of cars as long as it's Ford and it's black. So there you go. You can have any node family as long as it's memory optimized. Again, in the future we may see like a GPU focused, GPU supported node family, for graph computing units. More options may show up here in the future, and they're ready for it. But for now, this is all that we have. Oh, I don't have graph GPUs here. What about my machine learning that work with image processing, and I need GPU for that one? Yeah, if you need that, Fabric is not your place at this moment. It may be in the future, right? But not this moment. So we have to go to another Spark environment that would support that. Databricks is one, for instance. And here is the options for the node size: small, medium, or large. And this one here, it goes along with the amount of CPUs that are in there, right? So if I go here into a large, it changes, the settings that are in there. We go to small, we already changed, so it's over. And here I have the option for auto scale. So we can go, yeah, right? It can grow up from 1 to 4. So those that I have, remember, I have an F8 computing unit. Oh, by the way, in Fabric, the F8, I think I said before that 8 is 8 vCores. It actually works on half vCore scale. So F8 is actually 4 vCores. So that's why I have an option here for that is limited to 4. See, you cannot go above 4. So if I need a Spark pool that has more than 4 computing elements in there, I will need to create a new capacity with more computing units, so I can have more options in here. This can go, all the way up to 128 per node, so it can go really big. But I'm limited here because of the capacity. That's why I showed the capacity first, so it could make sense of it. All right, so this is the compute power of my coming to be Spark pool. So I'm gonna go and create it. And when I do this, I am not spending any money, because I'm just creating configurations that when I run something that depends on this Spark pool, will run under the limitations, the configurations of this Spark pool, and that's all that it does, right? This doesn't cost me. It's just metadata. It's just definition. Let's go ahead and save this. And once it's saved, now I can see both Spark pools. I have the started one, and I have my Spark pool. So if for this Spark pool, I need to set up some things on the environment, I can come here and define what elements I want for that environment. I can create or this one, on this particular one here, I can define which runtime environment I want to support. Now, if you are new to Spark, what does this thing here mean? Well, let's do a comparison, right? Let's say we are talking about Windows machines, right? You have Windows laptop here, I'm running Windows 11. And before Windows 11, I had Windows 10. And before Windows 10, that they said would be the last Windows number, but they actually moved to 11. So they have Windows 10. And before 10, we had 7 and for desktops, right? And before 7, I think was XP. There was something in between. So you have these operating systems. These operating systems are your runtime environment, what they call that the runtime version. And as you know, if you have an application for Windows XP, it may not work on Windows 10. If there are some dependency in there that was deprecated in Windows 10, it's the same code as Intel code. Theoretically, could work on the hardware where Windows 11 is working, but Windows 11 doesn't support some of the calls that are in there. So that application, when I try to run on Windows 11, it would fail. It's the same thing in here. You can go online, grab a notebook, a Python notebook, for instance, or a Scala notebook, for instance. You can grab a notebook that has code that people have created to crunch data that it's in your one lake. But if that notebook was created for a runtime of previous versions, it may not work and more likely will not work on later versions. And then you have to bring the notebook. The notebook is open source, it's text, is created on Jupyter Notebooks. So you can bring it in, but you have to tweak it in order for it to work. So this runtime environment, it is about the preloaded libraries and the Spark runtime leveraging these libraries. So in this case here, for instance, we see that I have the Spark version, runtime version 1.1 here, 1.1 and 1.2. This 1.1 and 1.2, they are related to the Fabric version. There's nothing to do with open source Spark or nothing like that. It's the Fabric version. And the Microsoft did that just make it easy. Which runtime version you're doing, 1.1, 1.2. So if I say 1.1, I know that 1.1 supports Spark Engine 3.3 and Delta 2.2. Now, what is the Spark Engine? Is the computer library. All the code you do, all the Python libraries that are in there, the particular compilation of the Spark open source, because Spark is an open source project, and so they have these builds they put out, and people adapt the other companies that get the Spark, they adapt to their environment. So Microsoft went to Apache Foundation and got the Spark open source in there, forked that library in there and adapted to work in Microsoft Cloud, in Azure, and inside Fabric. So bang, it's right there, Spark 3.3 compatible. And so that is the compute. Now, the compute needs to deal with data on the one lake. And when that data is in the Delta format, which we'll briefly discuss in a second, when that data is in the Delta format, Delta, it's an open source standard on how to deal with data. And again, the specification changes from time to time. So there is a 2.2 and there is a 2.4. Where is 2.3? Don't talk about 2.3. Leave it alone. So there is a 2.2 and a 2.4, which means that if I get data from a partner that was saved into a storage as a Delta format 2.2, I need to use this Spark pool. But if I'm creating something in Fabric, I want to leverage the best behavior there is in Delta in terms of ACID and all the elements in there, I may want to create a 2.4. So I need to be aware if I'm doing Spark and if I'm helping people to deal with the Spark inside Fabric, I need to ask these questions. This data that's coming in, which version is this data? Are we doing something new? So let's do with the latest version because we're gonna have this extra behavior that's in there. And again, I'm not going deep diving on each one of them because we don't have the time. And also because there are, I have a particular session just on delta. Now, what does this think about delta table, delta lake? What is that? So we can discuss that in some other point, some other time. But the bottom line here is, if you're creating sparking environments in Fabric, and for that matter anywhere else, you need to be aware of which libraries will be loaded, which Spark runtime needs to be there to support the code coming from the notebook, and the data format that the data is coming in, specifically when it comes to Delta format. Great. What else do we have in here? So this is my runtime version. And over here, we get some settings for high concurrency when we have multiple notebooks running at the same time. This is just an optimization. It's just like I said, just a turn on and off element in here, made way simpler. Of course, if you want to get into more details, you can click in here and see what exactly it does and how it does the time sharing between the parallel notebooks that are running there. And this is about the logging when something runs, if you want to keep the logging running somewhere else. And that's pretty much what is in here, right? We don't have anything else. Let me see. Yeah, let me turn on this environment here. If I turn this thing here on, see setup default environment. If I turn this guy on here, what happens in here is it works on the default environment. See the workspace default. In my workspace, in my Fabric tenant, actually, I did not set up any. And the idea here is, if I come and set up my default, and I set up one in here, when my notebook starts, it will start super fast, right? Because it's just a default environment that's available for anything in the workspace, or in Fabric for that matter. But if I define a particular a particular Spark pool that I created with my settings, that will take about 2 minutes to warm up and get going, right? So there's this definition too. And when it gets to the public one, I can also come in here and add my libraries. If I'm going to work with any other libraries that are there by default, and for that I will again direct you to the documentation. But if I want to import a configuration for libraries from an YAML file or from oh my God, the name escaped me, sorry. But if I want to import from PyPy, I will come in here and define the library, what's the URL to get to that library, the name of that library. If it's a public known one, I would come and define it here and get it there. If I have my own libraries that my company has created, they're not published publicly on any repository, I can come here and upload that from here, get from my computer, whatever the library is, and bring in, which means that when the Spark pool comes up, it will come up and load everything that is defined on this guy here. Here we go for the computer reference again, the amount of CPUs that we have for the driver, and here for the execution, so how many nodes we will have and the limitations of them. So as you can see, when you get into that specific definition, you get just more detailed, granular options to get in there. All right, how we are up in questions and timing? Any questions there, Ingrid?
You have 3 minutes, and I think you're doing well on timing.
Cool. No questions? All right. So that's
pretty much it. We do have one Spark question.
Oh, okay, cool.
Does Spark pool node count have a limit for each Fabric SKU? But I think you already covered it.
All right. Yes, I already answered. Okay. Yeah. So you know what is funny here, Emily and whoever asked that question. If I come in here, if I go to my capacity and say, now I have, the largest capacity, and then I come here, create a Spark pool that uses a lot of compute, and then I go back to the capacity and shrinks it down to minimum, my Spark pool definition doesn't change. But when I try to run, it fails because there is no capacity to support my Spark pool definition. So be careful about that, right? This depends on one of the other. So that goes into the skew element that was mentioned there. All right, so to wrap it up, this is a 1 hour session, right, Emily?
That is correct.
All right, so to wrap it up.
We have another question. So we got one from Nishu. How many V core does a capacity unit have?
Half. It's a half V core.
Thank you.
That was easy. So yes, so to wrap it up and see this thing working, let's just bring here some activity and see how that goes. So let me go back to my workspace. Let me go back in here. And here's my workspace. This is the workspace I created, right? Yep, right there. I have an environment that I have created here for my Spark elements. Again, within the workspace, everything works for the workspace. So if I want to, well, I have a workspace here that has some data already. Let me switch to this workspace to make my life a little bit easier. Where is the data? The data is in OneLake. So if I want to do a Spark pool, if I want to run code on a Spark pool, I could do like in data pipelines, I can do machine learning, I can do a notebook. This example here, to wrap it up, I'm going to do in a notebook. The data, okay, close attention here. The data is in OneLake, but you get to the data through a workspace. And the workspace has this element called the lake house. See this guy here, the lake house? It has this element called the lake house, which is a window to the OneLake. Inside OneLake, we have a lot of folders organizing the files that we bring into the OneLake, because OneLake is for structured, unstructured data. So everything is files inside the OneLake. I have a bunch of tables I brought in from a sample database that I have in there. So that sample database, oops, I see Emily. Is my screen still shared?
Yes, perfectly.
All right, cool. my team's here changed. Sorry about that. So to have access to the data that's in OneLake, I need to go into the workspace and create one of the two elements that will give me access to the data that's in OneLake. And this is the can be the lake house or can be the data warehouse, which is this one here. See the warehouse or the lake house. So for now, because that's not the main topic of the day, just keep in mind, in order to touch OneLake, I will not see OneLake here on any workspace. What I will see is either a lake house or a warehouse to give me access to what is in the OneLake. So let's go to the lake house. And here in the lake house, there will be a few tables here that I brought in some other day for to run a sample that was doing for a guy. So here is my collection of tables, right? That I see tables, a collection of tables that I have there in my lake house. So let's say I wanna query this particular table here. You can click here on this guy and say, well, does I want to do it? Of course not, right? Just because I said I want to do this guy here, doesn't want to do it. Let me see here. Nope. Go to files. Is there anything in files? No. Oh my God. Sorry about that. Somehow I got it. It should have an option there for me to query that. So let me do it another way. So it's in bronze, right? Let me go in here, back to the workspace. Let me create a notebook. Here, let me create a notebook. Because notebooks, they work on Spark, right? And I just created a notebook here, and the notebook is like, where is your data? Where does the data come from? So I'm gonna do this way. So for some reason, the other way was not giving me the option that I was looking for. So I'm gonna do an existing lake house. And again, I'm gonna point to that bronze I was seeing before. So I'm gonna get this guy here. And I'm gonna try that same table there again. There we go. Now I can, or I should. It's really giving me a hard time today. Any files there? No files there. Nope. Yep, here's just the table. It should be able to give me the option to do that. So let me try this. Back, select, star from DBO underscore tags. Let's see if this. So here is a Spark notebook, right? And I mean, this is a notebook that depends on the Spark environment. And here are the Spark environments that are available for me. I just set that up a minute ago, and I defined the workspace to use my setting and that setting alone, right? I could not choose different Spark pools. And when I run this guy here, because this notebook is backed by this workspace that is connected to this particular lake house, I can do like, oh, sorry. SQL, there we go. And then select. Hope that works. For some reason.
We have another question?
Yes.
The question is there an option to view Spark UI in Fabric?
Spark UI. I'm not sure what the Spark UI would be. I would say no, but I'm wondering what the Spark UI would be, because the Spark is the runtime environment. And what we get from Spark when you run these notebooks, for instance, is the log, right? The response of the Spark environment. So we really don't have an interface. I don't remember having seen something I would call interface. So I'm sorry. I don't know exactly how to answer the question. I would say no, because the interface you see is this one here. And there we go. So my code, in this case here, I went for a Spark SQL code using here the magic command. My Spark code in here ran backed by this particular workspace, by this particular Spark pool set up for this workspace, and went to the one lake, worked with the table that was that in one lake, and brought the data in. Now, of course, when you do Spark, you do, all your code or data crunching, and that's programming for Spark. That's another topic, right? This session here was about that, how to create the environment, how to be a hero on the Spark environment in Fabric, so you can get your Spark code running according to definitions, according to the use case, what you have. And this is pretty much what you need to know about Spark in Fabric. If you know how to set up these things on and understand the concepts of capacity, Spark pools associated to the workspaces, you get and how to configure the libraries and everything else, you have everything you need to have a successful run of a Spark notebook or data pipelines or anything else that depends on Spark. So this is what I had for today. Open for more questions. I'm more than happy to hang up here after the hour. But I hope you have learned something new, and please connect with me on LinkedIn. And I give it back to you, Emily.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful session, and you really got well around every possibility of using Spark in Fabric. Very inspiring, and thank you. I learned many new things.
That's great. Good to know. That's the feedback I always want to hear.
And I see a lot of people clapping and a lot of people saying thank you in the chat. So that's wonderful. And then they ask, when is the next Fabric event? And for us in this user group, that will be on the 7th of March. And I know that on the 7th of March, we have the great luck of having another great speaker. And if I'm just going to scroll back, I can tell you what it'll be about. It will be Microsoft Fabric and Azure DevOps, and it will be with Kevin Chott. It will also be my co-host, Brian Book, who will be hosting that session. And hopefully I'll be back on the 11th of March. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining in and for all the good questions. It's been a delight having you all.
Yes, thank you so much. And Emily, thank you for having me again. I really appreciate being with your group. And to everybody else, please connect with me on LinkedIn. It would be great to keep in contact. I do a lot about this stuff, so please connect with me there.
Thank you. Will do.
Bye now.